Welcome
I'm
everyone.
running away now, guys.
Yeah, run away. Welcome. Confronting COVID-19 episode 2, going digital, taking your products and services online. I've had an amazing lineup on the first edition. Now we have the second edition, and the lineup just keeps getting better and better. We're going to start reeling them off one by one. First up, we have Kike. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, good, great, good.
A bit too much.
Okay, good.
A bit too fresh. So
it's all good. She is the founder and CEO of BYP Network, a platform that is changing the way for Black professionals to connect with one another and other corporations. She's also been on Forbes 30 Under 30. Our next panelist, Bejay Mulenga, founder and managing director of Supa, a fast-growing training and employer brand consultancy working on diversity campaigns and programs for large corporations and SMEs. Simon Morris, he is the managing director of Cole, a multi-award winning advertising agency with clients such as EAT, Her Majesty's Department of Education, and global social media phenomenon, TikTok. And last but not least, William, I hope I say this right, Adaosi, did I say that right, William? Correct me if I'm wrong. Demi, you got to unmute him.
Done.
Demi. There we go.
But yeah, I'm happy with the pronunciation, no worries.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Founder of Vitae London, a fashion brand which creates styling yet affordable watches which support a child in sub-Saharan Africa every time one is sold. He's also been featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. And that is my panelist for today, guys. Can we get a massive round of applause? I think that's great. We did well. All right, questions. We're going to get off to the questions, and please hold your questions at the end. This is going to last about an hour long, where we have this nice discussion back and forth. And then if you have any questions, I will definitely put them forward to you guys at the end. Building an online community. Now, what are the key components for building an online community? Let's start off with Kike. See, it wasn't too harsh that time, huh?
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. I guess if you're trying to build an online community, you have to first know why you're trying to build one. So are you trying to build a community of, I don't know, people that like knitting, or people that are all interested in drumming? In our case, Black professionals. Like, what's your reason for building one? And kind of what are you offering this community? Like, you know, you might build one, but how are you going to stay engaging with them? So will there be events? Will there be webinars? Is there going to be a forum? Like, why should they essentially join your community? I think a lot of people do want to build community because everyone's looking for, you know, like-minded people. Mm-hmm. But you also kind of have to realize, does that community already exist? That's something, you know, do your research. If it already exists, maybe check it out. Maybe if it's not quite what you're looking for, maybe you can even speak to the admin or the main person, kind of see what their goals are or ambitions are with their community. And if it's still not aligned, go for it. Go for your own, do some research. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how you get started with a community. And I don't know if there's going to be a question like how to sustain and retain a community. But I'm always pro research. Like, that's always the first step for everything.
Nice. Bejay, any added points on that? What are the key components for building an online community?
Yeah, I think key components to building a key community is finding your tribe. So in every industry that you go into, once you've kind of identified your why and you started to kind of work on your product, it's very, very important to find people that you can associate yourself with, to learn what's working and not working, and to give yourself the advantage to scale fast. And then the other side is they're going to be your biggest cheerleaders and enable you to grow at exponential growth. You can go fast alone and you can go far together, and that's very, very important when it comes to the online community. There's power in doing things with people in different segments, and I can give loads of examples of people in my network and myself where we've been able to build communities in different countries very quickly. Mm-hmm. So try to find your tribe and be authentic. So try to add value. Don't go there just asking for stuff. See how you can provide value. So both Kike and Will and I were in a D2C group chat, and we're in 10X and we're in YSYS. We're in different communities where people are learning about funding opportunities. People are learning about opportunities, where to find designers, where to find accountants. And these are things that when you're starting out and you're trying to go online, you're going to need to get your stuff in order in multiple different ways. So try to add value, and the value will be brought back to you.
Yeah. William, anything to add on that? I mean, everyone businesses is different. Everyone's startups is different. What would your key components be for building an online community?
Yeah, I couldn't really agree more with what's already been said. Just to really emphasize on the point of really like adding value. Look at the purpose of your community. Look at what the differentiator actually is, and how you're actually serving this community of people. If you don't have an outlook to actually serve them or aid them in any way whatsoever, then I'd say don't bother, because there's someone out there probably already doing it with the care and attention to do that. So make sure you're actually adding value. And just a practical note, you're probably going to get something which is known as an early adopter in the early days. So you first set up this community, there's going to be a tribe of people that naturally gravitate and flock towards whatever you're building. Find out what it was specifically about your community that caused them to want to come on board and actually join that community, and then scale that. So for instance, if they've joined your community because maybe they've joined your community because you run a business like BYP, for instance, and they found a phenomenal job, then maybe that is an area you can really scale, because you know that's what drew people in. So yeah, just things like that, I'd say.
Simon, would you say that you kind of touch on these same key components when you are telling your clients as well, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of what everyone's saying is very true. Well, all of it's very true. And from an advertising perspective, what we look at is around community being something you can build up over time, that ultimately will give you more value, because every time you want to go and reach an audience, it costs you money. If you've got a community, you can go out and you can reach them and you can engage with them where there's very little cost. Your cost of acquisition is much lower. It also means then is you can work with them to become your advocates, and they become your mouthpiece. And if you work from the principle that you don't actually own your own brand, your customers do and your advocates do. You know, a great example being something like Gymshark, which is absolutely flown recently because it had a really strong online community that built around it. And I think that's where you can see that value that everyone's talked about coming from an advertising point of view, is that it costs you a lot less, but you get a bigger reach.
Nice. I think that brings me on to my next question. Everyone has answered that very nicely. What are the 3 things every small business owner must think about, and why? Let's start with you, Simon.
Ooh, 3 things as a business owner. Well, the first one is to make sure that what you're offering people actually want, and do that sense check on it. The friends and family, I call it. You know, you've got to avoid that and actually go out there and do your research. Make sure there is that real market for it. The other one is kind of make sure that you know how you're going to leverage your online presence. What do you need to do to make that work for you? And then also in terms of looking at how you're going to be authentic, which was mentioned earlier, and how you can communicate that. Because online, you can't hide as a brand or as a business. That it's so easy to research it.
Yeah, Bejay, I think you're someone that I've seen quite closely, and how Super Talent has grown as well. Like, what were the 3 things that you kind of took on as a small business owner, and you know, what did you think about and why going into your stage?
Yeah, cool. So luckily with my business, we're able to kind of work on different projects and do different things. At the moment, we're working on a quick announcement, like a digital festival with Deliveroo. That's going to be announced next week. That happens at the end of next month. And I think the approach I do with any activation, and it's true and tested, is just knowing the cost. That's very, very important. About a couple of years ago when I was starting out, I always kind of just ran with the idea and the gut and, you know, what it is that I would like to do. But the thing that always was a downfall for myself and a lot of people like me when we're starting out is spending way too much time on the creative part and really neglecting the finance part. So really having a financial plan, and I'm not talking about making a business plan for weeks, but just on a lean canvas, on a one-pager, what is the model that I'm looking to do, and how does this scale, so that when you're going out and, you know, testing and doing your initial MVPs and trying to get your first 100 customers, trying to get your first 1,000 customers, you have a system where you are tracking, right, my hypothesis is correct. So the first thing I always like to do is have a lean canvas in my hand, printed out. You can see like whiteboards behind me. I always kind of sketch stuff out before I do any project.
Yeah.
The second thing is I try to do a skills analysis. So you're not always the best person to do every single job. So compared to 20 years ago, or 10 years ago when I started, for example, Right now, the internet, you can really get some really, really amazing labor at really favorable rates if you're very specific what you want. And oftentimes entrepreneurs believe we can do everything. So if you're going to do something online, it's very, very pertinent to try to find a way to list out what are the skills that you can do with your eyes closed. What are the skills or things that add value to your business? And you might find that there's differences. And then what are the things that the business needs, but you actually struggle to do? And if you can kind of like put that on a piece of paper or put it on a working document, it means that as you're looking at the startup amount of money that you have, you can actually allocate the money in the right place and go on Fiverr, go on the Dots, go on BYP, go on Twitter. You know, Twitter and Instagram are great places to find talent, and really be very specific with the ask. Like, I need someone to help me increase the speed of the website. I need someone to come and fix a Shopify backend. I need someone to take product shots. And then you can work on your specialism, and you can be very specific with the ask. So that skills analysis is something that after you've done a canvas is quite important. And then the third thing, which I find to be quite important, is energy management. You're only as good as your sleep, or you're only as good as your own energy. So a lot of us try to do a lot, and there's always a lot of stuff to do. But you want to put yourself in a position to be a high performer. So there are some really interesting things you can do from a time blocking perspective, and from a planning of your time perspective, to really become a bit more aware of what it is you're actually achieving. And it's not to say that you should do just a small thing, or you should just do big things. But if you can find a way to map out what your goal is for the week, for the month, for the day, and work either with OKR system or with a bullet journal system, doesn't really matter the tactic, but having something where you're tracking, where you're trying to go and work backwards, and you can be a bit more systematic. And then you're also looking at your sleep patterns. That's something that's very, very important, and sometimes forgotten, and we remember when we get burnt out. So I'd recommend that as like the third thing that I do.
Okay. William, obviously your business is different. So what were the things that you were thinking of when you were starting out, and why? And I think that what's so great about yours as well is that we support child from sub-Saharan Africa. Like, when did that concept kind of submerge to you? Was that something that you had from the beginning whilst, creating Vitae London, or is that something that came later on your journey as your business flows?
Yeah, so for me, in terms of the purpose of Vitae, making an impact's always been at the core of what we do. So Vitae is actually Latin for life. So our whole mantra is to be the fashion brand changing lives. And then in terms of the three things I would say to look out for when launching, first thing I would say, similar to what Bejay just touched on, is just all around self-analysis. Like, understanding what your strengths are, understanding what you're most passionate about, understanding what makes you tick, what gets you up in the morning. Like, having like a really deep understanding of that will enable you to do so much more, because the elements of the business that you don't particularly naturally drawn to or may not energize you, you can then work with others in those areas and go at a much faster rate. So first thing is self-analysis. Second thing I would say is competitor analysis. Like, in this day and age with so much data and information available to us, we've got no excuse to not actually understand maybe what our competitors have done before we launch a project. So I was looking in like really deeply at all the watch brands that had launched in the past 5 to 10 years, the ones that had scaled really fast. What tactics did they implement? What kind of influencers did they work with? What kind of press did they have? So I've actually got I've got a press list that I made up in Excel spreadsheet, where I've got all the press pieces my competitors have ever had released about them. Then beside that, I've listed all the journalists that wrote those press pieces. And then beside that, I've written the angle at which the press piece was written at. So then I could approach those journalists at a similar angle where there may be synergy or there may not be. So yeah, just do as much like deep competitor analysis as possible. And then the third thing I would just say is try and get an MVP out, a minimum viable product out as quick as possible. So try and get the lowest possible form of your product out as soon as possible, because then you get to understand why people naturally gravitate towards it or not. You get to understand what you need to improve and iterate on, and understand that like it may not go as well as you want initially. It may not go off with this massive bang, but at least you've got something out there and you've made some steps, and then you can improve so that next time you come around, you've got a much better product for the world.
Nice. And Kike, any last touches on that one?
I feel like, everything has pretty much been covered.
Yeah.
However, going back to kind of what I said, step one would be kind of idea generation and research. So, for example, before I started BYP Network, I had my own idea of what I wanted it to be. I believed it was necessary, it was needed, but the truth is, did other people really need it? Did I just make this up, or was it a real kind of problem? So I started off by surveying about 100 people. I was like, just messaging random people. Anyone I saw was black. Just sent them a DM or whatever. Someone sent me a DM the other day of the DM I sent them all those years ago. That's how much it just it's nice to see that growth as well. And then kind of with that, I got my results, I got my answers. And then I was able to kind of tailor BYP to start off with to kind of suit the needs of what people wanted, but it was still aligned with me. And at the same time, like I said, understanding your competitors with that, just kind of what William said. So but my way was more going to the events that they had or going on their website, seeing what made us different. Why was BYP different? And I think with BYP, we were like, we're all friends, we're all family versus kind of ego, which is what I saw in a lot of Black professional networks. It was kind of like, I'm the MD of this company, respect me. Whereas BYP was more like, it doesn't matter who you are, drop your titles at the door, and let's all just be friends and family. And that mission continued. And I think breathing and living your mission is important. Like, we've been very consistent with what we've said from the day one, because that is what we're here to do. We're authentic with it. So I think understanding why you're doing your business, like living and breathing it and never changing that. And when you have ideas, jot it down, and then, just keep expanding and keep on. If you have to pivot, but make sure that it's still aligned with your mission. I think number two kind of goes to the social media and branding side of things. Like if you're setting up an email, make sure it's at yourcompanyname.com. If you're setting up a website, there's so many platforms that you can set up, whether it's Wix, Squarespace, Bubble, get something out there. You can do it yourself, or you can go on Fiverr.com and get someone to do it. But again, you need to have that vision of what you want it to look like. And this is super important, get up a website just so that people know that you're real or your company is real. And that's the same for social media handles. You might send something, but if I go on social media and I see you don't even have an Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, then I might not be as sold to your business. So making sure that you're consistent as well. So I remember early days of BYP, we didn't have that much followers, but I'd always post 3 times a day. I don't know how I did it back then. I could never do that now, but 3 times a day we're posting. And I remember someone randomly to me, one thing I always see is BYP on my timeline. Like, you guys are so consistent. And it's just a little notice, that something that they noticed, but it was a lot for me. Like, okay, I'm onto something, like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think that consistency in the early days as well, even when things aren't really taking off, is super important, so that you don't get discouraged. And I think my final thing would be about sales and marketing. I think there's a lot of things right now of just raise money and go straight for that instead of really working on your business and getting revenue in and understanding how to bring in revenue. You can't always rely on fundraising, and also as a person of color, it takes a bit longer. So I think being able to really prove your business and focusing and doubling down on that is super, super important. And if you can get someone in the team that does sales, maybe you can pay them based on results, so that even helps you. But don't kind of shake that off as not a necessity. So I think, those 3 things are super important, and everything else everybody touched on.
Sweet. Hope everyone's taking notes. We're moving on to our second topic of today, which is selling products online. All of you have had experience online, running a business online, sorry. Could you break down to us how online businesses should go about selling business online at the beginner stage and at the advanced stage? William, would you like to start?
Yeah, cool. So we're really passionate at Vitae about being organic first. I feel like a lot of brands, they try and, especially in the D2C space, what I'm seeing a lot of is a company starting from nowhere, raising loads of capital, throwing that money at Google, throwing that money at Facebook, running out of money and not actually ever understanding what their true fit was. Whereas for us, to be honest, I didn't have any other choice because we were bootstrapping to begin with, to be honest. But for us, we've learned so much by being organic first. So putting out trying to create as much content, which we think it's about reverse engineering who you think your ideal customer is, trying to create content for that customer, seeing what they naturally gravitate towards, what they don't naturally gravitate, and then adjusting and changing, and then seeing well, actually, who actually bought my product? So once you go from prospective people that have just seen you and viewed your content, you then analyze the people that have actually purchased your content. And if you can, get on the phone to them, understand why they bought your product, why they bought into what you're doing, because then you can scale whatever selling tactic you use to sell to others. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Simon, any touches on that one?
Yeah, I think going back to something we mentioned earlier about an MVP is really important. Getting a platform up there where you can show what you're producing, what you're selling, and start to build that story around it. But go out there and test and learn. You know, the one thing that the online space is great for is that you can get the data. You can see, like you were just saying there, William, that who's engaging with what I've got to sell, who's converting, who's not, why are they, and then start to ask yourself those questions. And start to understand the data. Get analytics into your website and start to see where are people coming from, how long do they spend on that, where are they leaving, and then start to think about how you can stop them leaving. Where are they staying? How can I do more of that? And just keep asking those questions and keep applying it back to what you're doing, because the more you apply your the learning you're doing back onto your website, onto your digital platform, long term it's going to reward you, because you're always constantly improving. Your traffic going up, your conversion rate going up, your sales going up. But that's because you're putting the time and doing the research, as you mentioned earlier about research being really important. Absolutely, your analytics is key. That's your window onto your customers, and also talking to your customers, find out what they like, and use social media to say, what about if we did this? And things like Kickstarter now are fantastic, where you can launch a product without having to actually go and find the capital. Go and find the backers, people who want to buy it, and they'll buy it before you've made it, which is brilliant. I think it's a really big step forward. So you can kind of, as a business, really change how you do things. You don't have to rely on the customers being there. You can actually go and create those customers, and then use that back into what you're doing on your site and what your brand's about. Then you could be saying that we are about being transformative about what we're doing with our products. So I think that'd be where I come from with that.
Yeah, Kike, any added on that one?
Yeah, sure. So if I look at beginning, it's just you basically on your own. Let's say you have no money whatsoever. Maybe you don't want to put in your own money. Maybe you're a bit afraid. I think at the beginning you have to be the master of all. Like you have to learn everything. So like, again, boring as it sounds, is research, right? Like go straight and like learn about marketing techniques. So whether it's Facebook marketing, LinkedIn marketing, ClickFunnels, like all those different marketing techniques that exist. Going on YouTube again, learning about what people have done, how to kind of get the leads that you need to sell products. You're going to need to be quite decent at design. Again, Fiverr is a great resource. So like going on Fiverr to find someone and pay them, not too much to design something for you in order to get some more leads. But I think that beginning process is just you learning and like research and understanding kind of a sales process and a marketing funnel. And then once you do that, you just run with it in terms of trying out campaigns, email marketing, all these different tools that you yourself can learn. And the reason why I think that's so important is that when it now comes time, let's say you've got some money in your business, whether it is from your own marketing and sales, or maybe someone has given you some money, then you don't want to waste it. Kind of like what William said, like people get a lot of money and then they just waste it because they don't really know what they're doing. But because you've done that area of research and you now see, okay, actually on Facebook, I was doing 50p or something like that, customer acquisition cost. So now that I've got more money, I could put more to it, or I can now pay someone to do it. And I know what results I'm expected to get. Because I think that happens a lot. You get someone in, but you don't have a clue about that side of the business. So you just trust them and they're not giving you the results that you should be having, or something's wrong, but because you don't have that expertise, you can't really like put your finger to it. So I think, beginning is you need to learn everything that you can, and it's okay. It will take time and it's not going to be perfect, but you do have time. Not every business is an overnight success. And then when you kind of, get better at it, you can hire someone else and you'll be able to monitor if they're doing it correctly. So that's kind of my two views.
Yeah. Bejay, lastly points on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's already been said.
Yeah.
If you've like mapped out your sales and your marketing funnel, I think the key part again is just as I said in that question number one, it's about community. So as soon as you start to build out those relationships, having that regular conversation with the people that are paying and buying from you, it's going to be super, super important. Sorry, my window's open. it's going to be super, super important for you to kind of, there's a quote from one of the co-founders at Airbnb around not trying to find 1,000 or 1,000,000 people, trying to find 100 people that really love what you do. Because the amount of data and depth you're going to get is going to really inform the product decisions you make going forward. I'm a big fan of that. Whatever campaign I work on, whatever brand I work on, it's very important to try to find the super fans who are going to keep it real and are not just people that are going to just like the thing, but are actually going to use what you're making and give you live feedback. Because that's going to enable you to grow ultimately and scale at some point.
Nice. Thank you. One more question on this topic, which is good, and then we can move on to 3 and 4, and then we'll open it up for everyone else who's in here involved for their questions. What advice do you have for traditional high street businesses like barbers, saloons, mums and pop shops who are seeing a digital revolution right now? I think it's good to start off with Simon on this one.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how digital is kind of getting into every aspect of our lives, and that's where we've got to understand what its relevance is to make it fit in my opinion. So there's a real relevance, and like you mentioned some examples there, where can you take payment up front? So as from a business point of view, if you're running a barber's, for example, it might be that you have a high incidence of no-shows from booking. If people are paying up front, then that's going to help you with cash flow as a business. You also get the commitment. And so being able to do that online, particularly now, contactless payments and digital payments through the web are really going to be important, in the next few months going onwards from there. Other elements are, as we mentioned, about how you integrate your social profile into everything. And we talk about digital, and I still think though there's a real world need as well. And it's about how can you have props that are Instagrammable within your business, so that then people who are experiencing your offering can, one, have fun, and two, inadvertently promote you. And you become synonymous with all of those values. So that's a digital element, but it's in the physical, and that's something that needs to be considered as well. Other elements, like you said, if you're particularly an offline business looking to go digital, and we've spoken about it, how do you build that following, and how can you build we've spoken about community, but also how can you build an interest in you? So that the big thing I always focus on with clients is about and we mentioned it just now, what's the intent of the audience? There's no point having lots of followers if none of them actually want to buy or visit what you have to sell. So you've got to focus on how you develop intent within your audience and get intent customers. And again, that would be something to look at, and understand what the channels can do for you. So for example, if you're really working hard on your organic search, your SEO, if you're building backlinks, if you're mentioned in the press, make sure you take a copy of what's being said and write your own spin on it. Say what you thought about what was said about you. That's always then going to be a visual presence. And it's again about if someone's researching you because they have intent to find out who you are, can I trust you? Do I want to go there? How do I find you? Make sure your location's all updated. You've got the right map and the pin marker. Simple things like that can be really important, because we talk about micro moments in advertising, and those micro moments are all about building trust. Do you do what I'm looking for? Can I trust you to do it? And then how can I actually get involved? I think if you get all of those steps in place, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Kike, any advice?
Yeah, sure. My business, I guess, isn't really, like a brick and mortars business, but obviously we had a event side of things that went online. But even if I look at friends and family, and I think of examples of like how these offline businesses can be online. I think of like an example, I went to a barbershop to book an appointment, and essentially they were like, even in the shop, they wanted me to go online and book the appointment. I remember thinking, wow, that's so different. Like, I'm here in the shop. Why can't I just do it like right there? And it was quite cool. The whole experience was online. It made me book online. It sent a receipt. It did all of that stuff. And that's quite interesting because that can just be online. I didn't have to be at the barbershop. I could have just done it online. And I feel like any offline business that hasn't yet gone online in terms of sales, like they're missing out. Like they can do it online to make it all streamlined so that they can even look at data and analytics. So like even before COVID-19, it should have been a thing. I mean, we look at Primark and we're like, what, come on, what happened there? And it's like, but we compare it to like Boohoo and Pretty Little Thing. They're already online. They're making a lot of money. And again, it is a lot of process with returns and stuff like that. But still, I feel like every offline business can easily be online. And kind of what Simon said before in terms of social media presence, I think, what's that guy's name? Spider Cuts does it really well, right? With the whole, he was on the other one, you know, he just built up a good following on his Instagram, and that made things, more people come to his shop. So it is that side of things, like you should be online, build up your presence, like, you know, do ads, advertise in your offline business, like when we're back online again. So I think that, I I can't think of any business that can't be online. Like I generally can't think of anything. And I think that if you at minimum don't want to do like a website where you can pay on the website, then definitely like build up your social media presence and your following, you know?
Yeah. Bejay, you want to take on that?
Yeah, I think the foundations have been laid there, which is quite good. The thing I'd add, if you are going to go online and start telling stories, start doing socials, I think the power is in starting to tell stories. So what are the testimonials? What are the kind of purpose and vision that people can kind of get around and reshare and feel like they're part of? If you're a traditional business that's been going for a while, there's all their stories. There's stories in what the founder and how they've coming about the business, and then there's stories of the customers, and then there's stories of the team. So spending some time with your team or with yourself. There's lots of free resources on YouTube. You can literally go on YouTube.com for free and Google Gary Vaynerchuk or Google any marketing boss and just ask the question, how to tell better stories and how to brand yourself better, and spend some time with yourself and just map out what that journey is. Because I do know with a lot of traditional businesses that are in my network, there is a fear where they don't feel as prepared to just go fully online, and they are just waiting like for us to kind of come out of lockdown. But I think in this time period, it's a beautiful opportunity to learn a new skill or get some new depth around. If you're going to hire the agency again to work, if you're hiring to do your marketing, learn a bit more about what it is you're paying them to do, as is already quoted. Number two, spend time with the customers and with your team and build those stories. And then number three, have fun with it. Ultimately, people want to see personality. People want to see why the brand exists. There was a note that Will said, which was really, really, I think pertinent for most brands today, is it's about being organic with your posting. And, you know, if you overlay that with being authentic as well, you don't have to do everything paid. And I think Slider Cuts is a great example of a barber who literally lives his life and has a bond with his audience. And there's no reason why someone that's got a butcher's, someone that's got a salon, someone that's got a nursery creche can't also tell stories.
Sweet. William, any last points on that?
Yeah, I think the purpose of any business, like the fundamental purpose of any business, is to solve a problem, right? Yeah. And if the digital world, like, it better equips you to solve a problem, then jump in the digital world. I think the example Kike gave earlier was perfect. Like, the fact that a barbershop can now use an online system makes things easier for their customers, makes the process slicker when coming into the shop. So therefore, you're adding value and you're able to serve people at on a better level. So with everything, when looking digital, just always, and the beauty of being a small business as well, is that we can be like as a small business, we can be so versatile. In a way, a massive business, when there's a new bit of technology where they could potentially better serve their customers, they have to go through so much bureaucracy before they can even pass it. A small business could make a move just like that. So just always be on the lookout for like the new and innovative ways people are reaching their customers, are continually engaging with their customers, and just take advantage of it, because being small has its benefits.
Yeah, sweet. This is the third one of the fourth topic that we're going to go on today, which is managing an online presence. It's one question. What are your key tips for keeping a strong online presence? Let's start with Bejay on that one.
Yeah, I think obviously this is contextual to what kind of business you have. So whether you are a personal brand and you may be an influencer and you've got products you're building, whether you are literally a brand that's new in the market, or whether you've got heritage and you've started already, I think the key thing before thinking about, making your online presence stronger is about identifying what traits and what pillars you have. So traditionally when people do marketing and they do content calendars, they sometimes step away and kind of make content pillars and literally map out, right, what are the things that we're specialists in, and pick maybe 6 or like 5 to 7 things that they can talk about often. And then underneath there, literally systematically look at what are the regular things that you can say or share or do in those pillars. And I think once you've got that kind of data approach and that kind of strategy approach to what you're going to be putting out there, it means that you're never really missing off beat with your value. And that is where you lead to comments like what Kike got around, oh my God, you're so consistent. That stuff doesn't happen by mistake. It's about people knowing that, you know, if I come to Lendo, I want to get some advice around funding. I want to get some advice around what's happening with C-bills and BBLs. If I go to X brand, I know I'm going to get X, Y, Z. So for me, one of the key tips of building that online presence has to be taking a step away from even creating anything and looking at your strategy. And before looking at your strategy, looking back at what we said earlier, the purpose, and literally feeding through a kind of almost like a marketing journey before you build your customer journey online. And then having consistency, working hard and working and making great creatives are just as important. But that fundamental piece before running and being very fascinated with creative is very important. And you don't need to bore yourself and put yourself through weeks and weeks of torture. It can literally be grab a drink of wine, grab some water, grab orange juice, whatever your preference is, and put up a keynote and mood board who you are. And then if you're struggling for ideas, go on to Skillshare, go on to YouTube, as I mentioned earlier already, and find really interesting talks by people that have built brands, because there's gems in that. And then through that, start to make notes around things that resonate, and then do that exercise I just mentioned around your first content pillar. Sweet. Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with what Bejay's saying there in terms of that marketing journey, because I'm going to reiterate what I said, which is about intent of your audience. Because what you've got to look at is, if you are looking at all of the channels available online, then you've got to make sure that they're relevant and the content is relevant and the action you want from them is relevant to what you want to happen at each stage. So, for example, social media is a great way of raising awareness, but it's also a great way of converting at the end of it. What are you going to do in the middle where people are researching you and they want to find out more? So you've got to make sure you've got the right content there on your own website or on other channels, or mentioned in the media because you've done some digital PR around it and got mentioned with journalists in editorial. So again, looking at how you can be pervasive everywhere. So you've got to make sure you've got, you know, as we mentioned, you're knowing which channel works in which order, and they're not always the same order, but where do you need to have that content and how does it need to be structured? So working on that's really important, because being online isn't just about the website. I actually believe that the website's kind of dead. If you have a really strong social media channel, you can sell without having a website, you know, through social media, through other channels. We mentioned about Kickstarter. Having just a profile on there could be everything you need as a business. So as long as you are making sure that you're working your public relations by getting mentioned by other people, getting backlinks, whatever your central hub is, so that people can find you and they can find out what they want to know about you in that research phase. Now, the other thing is that individuals online we have this opportunity to keep looking and looking and looking. So you've got to make sure that you kind of don't commit the worst sin, which is sending people back to the same content. Because if I haven't answered my question the first time, you haven't convinced me the first time, the same content is not going to do that. So understanding that journey, which is going back to what you were saying there, Bejay, is really important. How can you expand on it? What more can I do? Is there some FAQs I need to do? Is a little explainer video going to work at this point? And how do I get you to that? And that's going back to that journey. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah. And even just on the side note, a quick note that I wanted to add is just like, even during this time of COVID-19, we've seen TikTok just kind of blow out the waters and everyone just kind of sign on to there and join on there and just make their videos, and they have such a strong online presence. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people just gravitate towards it?
With TikTok? Well, there are two elements. Having worked with them, we've got a campaign going out very soon that we've been doing. Their two big challenges are quite interesting. One, that they've got this phenomenon around them because of they're well known, because they're organically well known. They paid a lot of celebrities to get on there very early on. They did a big outdoor campaign first. They actually did outdoor advertising before they did anything digital. The piece we've worked with them is really interesting. A lot of people are aware of it, and a lot of people go on there, but you've got different types of users. There are those who are voyeurs. They go on there and they're just looking at content and observing others. And then you've got more participatory individuals who are producing the content. And so what you're looking at is it's either escapism. I'm going to go into TikTok to just go and view some great content and let myself disappear from the worries and stresses I've got going on in the world around me and have a laugh or see something interesting. And then you've got those who are seeking fame. And so what you've got to do, and what we focused on with TikTok, is not just about awareness, it's about activating people. So the campaign we did was what won the pitch for us was that I sat in the room with them and said, look, we could do a great piece of content, but if it doesn't get people to download the app, and then it doesn't get them to sign in, and then it doesn't actually get them making content, because that's the category they fall into, all we've done is made a great ad. It hasn't actually worked as an advert. And then on the other point, if we haven't got people in there who are viewing content, how do we can get them to view more of the content they like? And so that's the interesting thing. The phenomenon they've got is that they were really, really good at being known for having people on there. And then that's what's got us out there. And suddenly you think about some of the people who are on there, and then the content. So interesting, when we made a campaign for them, that campaign's never going to run on TikTok. So it's really important that we didn't just make content for TikTok, because we had to make content that is about TikTok, but it's going to work on Facebook, on Twitter, and alike on other channels. And that's something you have to consider with your own business, I guess, going back to what we're talking about, is how you can be, I mentioned earlier, how you've got to be appropriate to the channel.
Yeah, sweet. Will, any last points on this one? What are your key tips for keeping a strong online presence?
Just to add to everything everyone says, obviously amazing, and just to add to it, I would say is add some personality to your brand. Look for your tone of voice. Again, going back to the fact that being a small business gives you amazing advantage, because you can really show, like, a personality can really come through, and you have the advantage that you can connect to consumers at the heart, where a big brand never will be able to do that, or they will try to do it, but they struggle more or less. So yeah, really look at the tone of voice. And going back to what I said earlier as well, is it's just about reverse engineering. So trying to figure out who you think your ideal customer is, and trying to understand, where do they consume their information? What kind of celebs, influencers do they look to? Where do they naturally absorb data? And what kind of information do they naturally gravitate towards? And what kind of videos, what kind of imagery do I need to put out there to bring more of those people that look like that to my audience? So yeah, that's what I would say. Just make sure you've got that clear tone of voice that actually makes you distinct from everyone else in the market.
Yeah. Kike, what were your key tips for keeping an online presence with BYP?
Like with everything, I feel like what was missed is just how much hard work goes into it. Like, I feel like you have to really emphasize that point. It's not as like easy as it kind of sounds, or, you know, there's a lot of time that goes into it, and consistency at minimum. So like, even it just gives me flashbacks of when I started BYP and how much effort we had to put into, I had to put into social media. And so it was like, obviously you should do your Twitter account, you should do your Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And I think if I think about Twitter, again, I was posting like I'd spend an hour in the morning. I spend like 15 minutes on Twitter in the morning, 15 minutes at lunchtime, 15 minutes in the evening, like consistently always online. So like in that 15 minutes, it's like, good morning, everyone. And every day I'll be like, good morning, everyone. And then retweeting or quote tweeting, and just having some kind of character. And then again, in the afternoon, I hope everyone's lunchtime is going great. Like, just really just always trying to be online and trying to engage with people. And again, you're not going to see the results straight away, but it is that consistency that does pick up. And it is that you trying to kind of stay relevant, or, you know, try to get something to go viral, which isn't easy either. And just kind of being online all the time. You've got to schedule that in your own time, because again, you're busy, you're working probably, you know, you're not too sure if this is the best business or idea. You're kind of doubting yourself, but you kind of have to keep pushing. And again, with Instagram, I guess some of the tricks with that is using one of those scheduling platforms. You know, they always help. So I remember I would spend, like, on a weekend, maybe I spend 2 to 3 hours for all the content of the month. And it would be like a quote then maybe some kind of salesy type thing about, you know, being a Black professional is great on BYP, just something weird like that. And then again, like a video or image, and that will be scheduled throughout the whole month. And you look in advance to see what days, like maybe tomorrow is World Sibling Day. So are you going to have a post for that? So it does take a lot of time and research to make sure you're doing that. And you're putting that on board. And again, you won't see the results straight away, but that consistency does build. Personally, I think, you know, the first thing to go as a founder is social media. You should not be doing social media when you don't have to. You need to get someone else on board on that. And I feel like that's one of the first things we did. Like, as soon as I could afford it, I had someone doing social media, you know, like they're the ones posting, they're the ones doing, I don't have to do any of that stuff. And that's relieved me of so much time, like not having to do that. But obviously you should be checking up on it, you know, make sure that you approve these posts, you know, anything can go out that does not work. I mean, one time, again, newsletter as well, you know, we have newsletter, we have podcasts. So there's a lot of content that we do have and that we do, but somebody else helps to do it. But I approve everything. I give the view of everything. And I think it just is, as an example, is why that's necessary and why we will always be involved in social media is, I remember one time I didn't check something because I was like too tired or too busy and like, you know, I trust you, like send it out. And then like BYP is Black Professionals Network. Our community is Black professionals. Yet the main picture was like of a white woman wearing a dress in the newsletter, because we're advertising another business's clothing line because that's what they wanted us to do and we got paid for that. But the person who did it like couldn't be bothered either and didn't select the right image. And that caused some kind of stir, like, you know, so we had members like, hey, you know, this is a Black professional community. Don't you think you should have had like a Black woman on the image? And it might be a little detail, but it is a big thing because they notice everything. Or times again, when I haven't checked stuff, there's grammar errors. So I would always say you're always involved in social media, but as soon as you can, you outsource that, you know, but just always be always be on it. And I think with BYP, that's how we've been able to grow. It's just that we're always on it. Like you'll see us all the time, and we've been consistent about that. And I myself, I post when I can as well on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So like, don't ever sleep on that. It's super important for the growth of your business.
Great. Guys, amazing questions, amazing answers from each and every one of you. We're down to the last topic, which is going from offline to online. I see the chat, I see the questions. Don't worry, I'm going to get to you really, really soon. We're going to keep this one short and sweet. We're going to start off with this question from the fourth and the last topic, which is, could you tell us how the pandemic has made you change your business and why? William, would you like to start on that one?
Has it made us change? Luckily for us, it's caused us to pivot a bit. So we were in the process of actually securing a retail storefront in London. So we wanted a few retail spaces in key cities in the world, so people would still be able to come on and try the watches, and then there'll be activations in there as well where they could experience what it's like to see a day in the life of the children we support through education, etc. So that's obviously been massively halted. And our month-for-month figures, like our projected figures, were initially hit, but we've come through actually quite strong. After the first hit, we pivoted in our marketing a bit, and obviously we've had to change some messaging. But thankfully for us, our online business hasn't been affected too dramatically. So yeah, the only drastic change is obviously not having the retail presence, which we were trying to have.
Yeah. Kike?
I feel like for us, it's quite an interesting one because, you know, we focus a lot offline, but really we are an online platform too. But our members really love offline, and we surveyed them last year and they were like, more offline events, like we want more. And that's kind of why we went like full throttle this year with offline, like one every single month. We were launching in different cities. So we had Birmingham launched, Cardiff, Boston. Obviously our conference this year, a lot of people don't know, is that we struck a deal and we were going to have it at St. Paul's Cathedral. It was going to be a whole festival. And it was going to be on my birthday as well.
Amazing.
Never mind. We could do that next year. But, you know, so we had all our plans for this year and it was pretty solid and super exciting. But, you know what, I see this as such a blessing because actually online should have been our focus, and it was supposed to be. We are an online platform and we got so into the offline, and we were making a lot of revenue as well with the corporates offline. But actually, if we grow the way we want to grow, we'll make all that revenue anyway, 10x, and our community will be bigger, you know, than it has been. So we've been fortunate in the sense that we've gone through it in terms of tech platform and just like bad dev, where it kind of worked out to a stage where we were able to launch again our new platform, which is bug free basically. And now it's like we just focus on scaling that. So in a weird way, it's made me do what I should have always done and what I knew I was supposed to do, but we just got caught up in like just loving being with our community offline. So now we're in such a great space where it's like actually we are growing. You know, we've got so much more to offer online, and we've already struck new kind of deals with corporates like to do webinars and stuff like that. So we've already got like Facebook, Microsoft and stuff all aligned coming up.
Nice.
And so for us, it's one of those ones where anything will impact us, but you know, pivoting is always key, and we'll always pivot and we'll always do what we can. And we're here to survive and thrive. And I think what's been even great is that we were going to fundraise. We already had like money on offer and all that stuff. But now we're like, no, let's pause it, because now's not the time to be trying to, you know, give more equity away if that's what they're trying to do. But there's all these other funds that are now available because of COVID. So like we got given the 50K bounce back loan. Like, you know, we got given like, you know, one of our investors gave us a 100K loan from before, like, hey, just take it, no interest, whenever. Like, so we've been fortunate financially to have just been like getting money anyway that supports the business. So we're not fussed about dying. So all we care about right now is growing our members, growing our users and growing our online presence. Yeah. So weirdly enough, it's actually benefited us quite a lot. Not the deaths, obviously, and it's impacted me personally because I just feel really empathetic to the whole situation. And that's partly why, you know, we went forth and did the NHS fundraise, because it's just like, what can we do right now? This is really frustrating. So actually, personally, it's been a really tough time for me, but as a business, it's been really good.
Okay, cool. Great answer. Thank you so much. Bejay.
Yeah, so COVID definitely made my business, start to look at how we can kind of pivot our revenue. We did a lot of stuff on a corporate level, and a much more smaller percentage was digital delivery. The cool thing about what we do, we've kind of had different versions of Supa for 10 years now. So relationships were super strong. And now after 6 weeks, stuff that was being postponed is now kind of gone virtual. And we haven't had to lose quality, because that was a big thing I kept saying to myself. A lot of organizations that do training with young people, that do activations, that do experiential stuff, a lot of people were jumping on lives. I did a few lives in March. It didn't feel right, because there's a quality and a process to designing a curriculum. There's a quality to designing a community or finding talent for someone. So the conversation I've been having with a lot of our community of entrepreneurs has been patience and listening to the market and finding a place to find value. The stuff that we've been speaking about this whole conversation. So we're fortunate that we had a profitable year last year. We had cash reserves and we haven't had to die or survive, but we've been able to kind of maintain, and now we're looking at how do we thrive. Something that's really interesting that I did in the background whilst listening to the market and figuring out how do we go from all of this face-to-face delivery to digital delivery. So I spent a bit more time in the food market. One of our clients we were meant to open up a multi-purpose kitchen and rooftop bar in Brixton. And me and the client, we've got into business together, and we're now doing a lot of delivery for those restaurants that can't actually go out and do stuff at the moment. So there are opportunities that you can kind of tap into with your skill sets you have, is something that I've always said, and I'm living it as my truth. And I'm sure Demi's going to talk about it in a moment, but I think last month we helped to feed 12,000 people with the non-profit I set up in COVID called A Plate for London. So I've donated half of my time in the last couple of weeks because calendar's way more freer than normal to just work with communities that really need food. I think there's some stats that have come out that are quite shocking, and obviously everyone deals with different things in different ways. But I grew up on free school meals, so I heard about the fact that some boroughs and some councils are struggling to kind of help young people in particular across Easter and in upcoming summer with food provision. So I got in touch with the Tower Hamlets Council, myself and my team, and we helped them with feeding 12,000 people. And this week we've started giving out more food again. We just did 500 meals today. We're probably going to do another 2,000 by the end of the week. And we're building a coalition of charities, local people on the ground who are doing stuff, who've just got too much bandwidth, who don't have enough bandwidth to feed the new people that need food. And then also working with local government. And the one thing that I know that's so important right now, away from all the business stuff, is that 1 million people applied for universal credit in March, and 81% increase for some of these food banks in terms of people needing food. And it's very important what we're doing with NHS and all initiatives that are happening. And I think it's just as important for us to think about the millions of people who literally might not be eating healthy meals. And there's a lot of like connotations and relationships that kind of get affected from a mental health perspective and from an energy perspective, which is a key phrase I opened up with. So I'm fortunate that the business is fine and we've just basically got rid of the office, but kind of been able to keep all my remote staff working from home, which has been good. And I'm also kind of like, I went through a phase, I think 2 weeks ago, I wrote an article about this, but I kind of found myself working on 3 things. So kind of like, some people have been rested, but I've been kind of like stressing myself. So I'm now respecting my sleep again. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey to say the least. But we thank God that we're safe. We can pay ourselves, and we're thriving in this season and helping people, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, sweet. Is someone skating?
Yeah.
Can everyone hear that?
Yeah, I want to close the window.
Someone's
I live in Shoreditch, so it's like, I live in
I thought I heard someone skating. It's all good. Simon, any last points on that one? Could you tell us how the pandemic has made you change your business and why?
It's been quite interesting in a mixed bag, similar to a lot of people. One of the first things we noticed that we actually started speaking more to all our colleagues in the office, even though we're not together. We took the decision maybe 2 weeks earlier than when we were told to work from home, because we kind of anticipated it and thought we need to kind of get ahead of this. And we started kind of, chatting as you do through various different platforms like this and WhatsApp groups and stuff. But it also, the nature of the conversation changed to a lot more about how we're feeling, looking after each other. One of my colleagues had an issue with her nan, who she lives with, went into hospital, and everyone was really worried, and rightly so. And we were trying to support her and do what we could to support her through that. So it's really nice to see everyone come together, not just be talking about work and the projects we've got on. In terms of the business specifically, we're very lucky that we had a really good cash flow forecast that we put together. When I say that, it's about, we knew where we were going to be at this time of the year, what we have in the bank, what our expected costs were. And so first of all, we could start looking at those costs and get control of them. But also then with the work in progress report as an agency, that's how we're working, knowing what we're working on at the moment, what's coming up, what's in the pipeline. We were able to predict, and it was brilliant working with the finance director, Rob. He's been fantastic, because he said, look, this is what we'll have then, and he was right. And so knowing that picture has been really important, if not essential, in order to keep moving forward. The one area where we've had some trouble is that a lot of our clients obviously lose focus, because maybe some of them are being furloughed. You worry about clients putting projects on hold or losing the confidence to do a project. So our big focus as a team has been making sure we're turning the projects that we've got on. And that's been my brief to the team, is like, let's just get the work done that we've got on now and do it well. And then making sure it gets to completion. If there's any drag in that, then there will be an implication. That's been our focus, is just do a really good job on the stuff we've got on. Looking forward, again, it's a benefit of how we structured our business a while back. And I think we've all spoken about that as panelists, about the decisions you make in a business journey. And one of the big things I focused on was, I got bored of having to pick up the phone and phone people and kind of pitch for business. So I was like, look, if you want to work with me, you come and find me. And not trying to be arrogant, it was just shifting the focus. I want more inbound people. I want people to work with us because they want to work with us. So what we did was we built a really strong digital profile. We've got a CRM system integrated into our website. Nothing complicated. It's called Pipedrive. So if anyone wants to look at it, I'm not on commission, but I do recommend it, because it's easy to set up. And it just, when a lead comes in, all the data's there ready for me, and I can either pick up the phone, have a chat with them, or email them back. And I know I've got that inquiry. But what we did was we worked on making sure that we were getting inquiries. And touch wood, I'm going to make a big statement now, but touch wood, we've been getting them every day. And what that has meant, then we've looked at what we do with them, because I haven't got the time to pursue every one of them. Some time when it wasn't this situation, I felt we were able to respond a bit better on those. So again, shifting focus, what we did was I reached out to a couple of agencies I respect. I know the people who run them. And I said, look, I'm getting these kind of inquiries, but I want those. So it's kind of about then making sure that we're networking with agencies, which doesn't really happen. You know, we kind of hate each other and we'll take the shirts off each other's back if we can. In advertising, it's ruthless. But what we are trying to do now is partner up and so feed each other opportunities and leads and recommend people. When we were quite lucky that we did do that inbound focus, because now I see agencies around us who are, and people WhatsApping me every day saying, you know, have you got any leads? Have you got this? You know, panicking to try and build that up, but you can't do it overnight. You know, that was 3-4 years worth of hard work, of late nights writing copy for the website, reaching out to journalists, as I know William was talking about earlier, and that's kind of a mixed bag for us, you know. So.
Thank you so much, Simon. I mean, there is one more question, but we don't have no time at all. And people have been sending in their questions in the chat. But I just want to say a special thank you to each and every one of you for the gems you've dropped, for the courage that you guys have taken to just pursue your passion, your business, and just to make it thrive in this current day and age and still keep on going, still earning. And my condolences to anyone that's ever lost anyone during COVID-19. We're all dealing with this in our own very way, but we're here to just, you know, share some gems and help anyone out there who's looking to be from offline to online. So I'm going to go into the chats now before we get Demi on later and see what questions we have. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. We got Rebecca on the foyer. Forgive me if I pronounced your surname wrong. Her question is, hi everyone, thank you for the information provided. My question is, when do you think is the right time to look for investors and partnerships, and how do you go about securing them? Kike, would you like to start out?
I think you have to unmute her.
Demi, you got to unmute her.
So that's my bad.
It's so good.
Like, I have a different opinion on this just because of the way I went about it. But I you know, like I said, I never knew about investments until I knew about investments. Like, I just started the business from where I was, with my own mindset of just growing the business and from, you know, like what I just internally felt right on my own research. And so before I even, you know, looked into fundraising, BYP was what, 2 years in maybe, or a year and a half in. And fundraising only became a thing after I won pitch competitions and won free money. And that's how I then learned about, oh, you can even get more money, like in terms of investment. So, and why that's important is that I never started the business with the mindset of I need to fundraise right now today to, you know, and that's my only way of growing the business. It allowed me to be really resourceful and like really kind of like, you know, bootstrap and just on the ground and just hustling and figuring things out with what I could. I was fortunate, I guess, with our first ever event to make a good amount of profit. And that money was what was, you know, able to kind of keep sustaining BYP Network and then doing more events and getting more money and then being able to use that to invest into the first platform that we had. But again, I didn't know any other way. And I didn't, you know, and I'm happy that I didn't know any other way at that time. I think that why I say this is that by the time it got to fundraising, I always say it was such an easy process for us because like they came to us essentially. Like when I spoke to other people in the, you know, in the entrepreneurship community, they're like, you have to have 50 to 100 conversations with investors before you even get money, you know, or I've had like 90% no's before I ever got my yes. Like very kind of horrid stories. Whereas actually, if you've already kind of done all the work and you've kind of, you know, proven that traction and maybe you apply for grants, you apply for pitch competitions, they are out there, like, and then, you know, you can kind of be looking for that fundraise or to kind of raise money. The one thing I would suggest is that now that you know about it early on, build those relationships now. It's all about relationships. So maybe that person you've met today might invest in 6 months' time or next year or your next round. So it is worth kind of building those relationships and kind of being plugged into the ecosystem and learning. Like I was fortunate enough to, by the time it came to fundraising, I understood about VCs, you know, I understood about angels, you know, I read some books on it or did a course on it, like just different things like that. Again, research, like everything I say will always go back to research. So I just don't think that you should start a business with, I need to raise money straight away in mind. And again, annoyingly, as a person of color, it does take longer. So you have to bear that in mind so that you don't feel discouraged about starting your business. And it's super easy nowadays to just start your business where you are. Like you don't even need that much money, like literally you don't. You just need the ability to hustle and to find the tools online and to be patient. But when it does come to fundraising, again, you just need to know what other people kind of did around your time or that has a similar business to you. So if you want to do a pre-seed round, you know that it's not too much. It's anywhere from 100K to like 500K. And then you understand how much equity you want to give away. What does that mean for the future? What did other people do? You know, and then make sure you have a lawyer, make sure you have an accountant. So yeah, that's kind of my advice on it. And then it gets, I think it does still get easier because you've maintained those relationships. So even I said we were going to fundraise again and we were pretty much oversubscribed, but these were relationships from our first raise, funny enough, of people who were interested then, but it was too early stage. So actually it's just, you got to remember it's a process and it is a journey and it's not a sprint. Things do take time and you got to know what you're going to use that money for. It sounds good to just raise a ton of money, but actually what will you use it for? And that kind of boils down to what I said about why I just went for some loans. Because I was like, you know what, it's free money right now. It's interest free. I'm going to use that to experiment. And then when I do raise, then I'll use that money to really rapidly grow. So I think people just have to really understand why they want to fundraise. It's not just fun and games. And you also have to remember that you are now kind of accountable to some people. Like it's not just what you want to do as such. It is, but you have to remember now, if you win or if you fail, you have to let those people know. So it's not just you on your own doing what you want. So yeah, that's what I've got. That's investors and partnerships. Again, it's relationship building, it's knowing your worth, or starting off maybe with a low pricing and then going higher, seeing what other people do in terms of partnerships, and then going from there. I mean, we got someone in that does partnerships. She's co-founder now and she kills it, and I let her be. So sometimes you just need to know what is right and maybe finding the right person in the team as well.
Yeah. William, anything to add on that?
Yeah. One of the things I would say is when you look at investments and partnerships, it's your entity working alongside another entity, right? And one of the key things I would say for anyone building a business is just try and see as quick as possible how in a partnership you're going to be adding as much value as possible. I think it's so easy to look at investment and partnership and say, hey, what can I grab? What can I take? How much money can I raise? But wait, if you raise that money, how much could you actually give back to, like, what's the value add of them giving you that money? What's the value add of that partnership? So I think the focus needs to be on that. The focus needs to be on building a solid foundation in your business. And a practical note just to add to that is, so I would say try and like take your time before raising. So try and bootstrap for a while. But a good scheme within the UK is something called SEIS. So it's something to look into where within the first 2 years, if you're able to get investment from particular investors, they actually get a tax break from the government, which actually means it makes practical sense for them to invest into you. So that's another thing to look into, which means that I think it's up to 150K for the first investment. So when you're raising up to 150K, try and do that within the first 2 years, because people here in the UK are actually incentivized to invest in you if you do it then.
Nice. BJ, Simon, anything to add on that? Any last points?
Yeah, so I've raised money 3 times for 3 different companies in the last 10 years. And the first time, I can definitely relate with Kike's point. You know, it's as a black individual, it's hard. You'll be talking to a lot of people and you don't know where you're going. But when you focus on doing something that's hot and you are just building a business, money does come and opportunities do come. And it sometimes, from my experience, has been it does happen when you when you don't even think that they're going to come. You're just going to do your thing and then people hit you up. That's happened a few times. I think what I learned from the first experience that I've taken to the other 2 experiences has been communication. It's all a relationship game. Rather than seeing everyone and thinking, just as we'll say, oh, what can I take? What can I take? What can I take? Outlining what you're going to do and letting them know what your short-term goals are and doing it, that is something that's really powerful when you're thinking of fundraising. So don't just communicate, you know, the big 5-year plan, but like, what are we doing this month? Because more time, a deal doesn't happen in a day, a week. It can happen. That, you know, the quickest deal I've done before is 2 weeks for someone from complete stranger to get involved in around. But the norm it is a couple of months process from introduction to someone signing a piece of paper and putting money in your account. In that time period, you have an opportunity to offer value. So send updates. Not every email needs to be, will you be signing the document? An email could be, hey, we've got this event coming down, and they come down and see your thing in action. That stuff is gold. Or come and attend this webinar. That's something I've learned. Communication with prospective investors and also current investors, because they're people that can reinvest, is very, very important. And then what I'm learning from my current business at the moment is when times do get tough and when times do get tough and when there are opportunities for you guys to navigate, it's very important who you pick as your investors to work with, because you want to be in the lion's den with people who are champions and people that are problem solvers, not problem makers. So before jumping into bed with someone and sign paperwork, it's very, very important to understand who you're getting into a relationship with, because business is a relationship ultimately. And your investors, if they're giving money, anything that is of a substantial amount, even if the demand returns on a daily basis, there is a dynamic there that's very different and very unique. And it doesn't matter whether it's VC money or angel money. There are demands that will be made. So picking the right person that fits your ethos of how you do business is very, very important. And the other aspect, I'll just echo what everyone said already. If you can bootstrap and you can get data and you can prove some traction, that what you're saying is working, what you're saying is important, what you're saying is needed today or soon, that gives you leverage. And when you have leverage, you're able to have favorable deals, because once you raise once, you may need to raise again. And you don't want to be selling too much of your business too soon, because there are two thresholds to remember that are very important. One is a 75%, and then the other one is a 51%. And the closer you get to owning less than 50% of your business, the harder it is, especially in the first 3 to 4 years, to pivot if you need to in a time like now, for example.
All right, cool, thank you. Because there's 3 questions left and we don't actually have that much time, I'm just gonna pick and choose all the questions, but just pick one person so they can answer it and then get Demi on. So the next question was from Kov Kahan, and they were asking, what do you think the industry would look like post-COVID, and how would your business brands utilize technology post-COVID? And I think Simon, I would like you to answer that question, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if I'm honest, advertising is going to be very badly hit by this. So they're already talking about that. We're one of the first industries always that gets hit by an economic downturn. One of the first things that people cut. What it is going to do is it's going to change the nature of where people spend, what they're doing. And I think what we're talking about, the focus on digital, we're only going to see more money being spent in social media advertising, in digital advertising and digital transformation of businesses. And you're going to see less in other areas, but you still will see digital businesses spending on outdoor media, for example. We mentioned about TikTok. So it's about the type of businesses that will spend and when they'll spend, and we'll see that over the next period. But I think specifically in our industry, I think the big agencies, which are very geared around big campaigns and big clients, are going to see the confidence knocked out of them. And I think you'll see a lot more startups, smaller agencies coming together, and really it could be quite interesting. It could be quite exciting for those who are kind of further down the food chain, if we get our act together.
All right, cool. My next question is from Elizabeth Akamo. I'll direct this to Kike. Her question is, if you're starting your business with building an online presence, when is the right time to officially register your business and start selling your product, particularly if the bespoke tailor-made products like artwork and prints?
So I actually think, so obviously I said 3 steps before. I actually think that after idea generation and research, the second step is registering your business and setting up the company. The only reason why I kind of go for this is that you kind of want to start how you mean to go on. So like getting everything in order. So whether you become a limited company, if that's what you choose to be, and you use a website like Company Formation, and that kind of does everything for you, does articles of incorporation, it helps you get your business bank account, it puts you on, Companies House and reminds you when your accounts are due. It allows you to kind of get a fictitious address if you need so for company's house. So it like does everything for you. You just enter a few details. I can't remember if there was a phone call as well. And I think it was like a one-off payment of like, you know, £30, you know, for the year or something. It's super cheap and it's so worth it because you don't have to worry too much. And like letters will go to them and they'll forward it to you if you want that. And everything is done. So like before you even get to selling or anything like that, you have your business bank account, you have, you know, all that in place. And as part of that whole registration process, again, find your accountant and your lawyer. Do that all early on. The accountant's there so that you don't have to worry about anything HMRC. They take care of that stuff. If, you know, overnight you become a success and everybody's buying your product and before you know it, you've hit over 80K revenue, you're going to have to think about VAT. But you don't want to think about that. Your accountant can think about that, you know. Before you know it, 1.5 years has gone by, you've got to submit your first accounts. Again, your accountant will do it. So like that's all part of the beginning stages of setting up. Like you don't want to wait till after when you're already selling, things are happening, and then before you know it, someone random has registered your business because they saw it thriving and now you've missed out, or someone else has trademarked your business. You know, like you have to actually do all this just in case. You got to buy your domain. You have to just take it all. Like even if you maybe it doesn't work out or you have to close shop in a year, that's fine. It's better than not doing the right things to start off with. And then before you know it, like you can't even register your business properly. You know, it's all kind of fumbled. And at the same time, again, having all your agreements in place. If you have a co-founder, make sure you have a partnership agreement between the two of you. Know whose roles and responsibilities are in place. Know what happens if there's an argument, who gets the final say, what happens if you want to dissolve things, making sure equity is like vested for 4 years. Like just like as a fundamental, just get all the things you need as your company done from the start. Like don't think you could do that later on. Like do that to start off with and then take the L of if, you know, your business doesn't work out. But trust me, that will help your business to scale quickly when you've got those basics in place. So yeah.
Okay, sweet. Last question would be from Ife Love, and I'll direct this to William. To all the panelists, well, to William, what have you learned about your leadership style during this uncertain time?
I think more than anything, I've just learned the beauty of compassion, and how like me actually just looking out for my team and being genuinely concerned about their well-being and like actually genuinely wanting to know the ins and outs. As time consuming as it may be, it actually pays off well. It pays off for the business. So yeah, I've just learned the beauty of compassion, the beauty of, even though we're separate, like actually being able to fully delegate and say, actually, I'm going to be hands off. You can run this area. You're better than me at this particular task. So I fully entrust you to run with this, and we can check in every now and again. So that's what I'm learning more and more, to be hands off in some areas and also just be more compassionate and actually try and see things through the eyes of my team. And even when I'm about to make a statement, when I'm about to make a decision or pivot the business, how are they going to perceive it? How are they going to feel? And how can I position it so that they realize that it's in their benefit for this shift to happen? Recently, I actually cut the hours of someone in my team to bring someone on board, but we positioned it so well that it actually ended up being advantageous to all parties. So if you're able to be compassionate, you're able to actually make better business decisions as well. So that's what I've learned.
Sweet. That rounds us up. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Kov. Thank you, Yomi. Thank you, Elizabeth, Ife, everyone has sent in their questions. I'm going to hand it off to Demi now, and he's going to sign us out. He's going to talk about the fundraising. He's going to talk about the donations and, of course, everything to do with We Are Lendo. So, Demi, when you're ready, please jump in.
Thanks so much, guys and ladies. Kike, I say it right.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was just nothing but gems. I took loads of notes, and I'm sure the audience did. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for attending. As Samuel mentioned, we are, very keen, and we're really, can I say this best? We're really moved by the work A Plate for London are doing, Bejay and Dominic's company. If any of you came to the last event, you would have seen that Dominic spoke all about A Plate for London and what they was doing, and how actually he managed to pivot his business literally in the space of, I think it was 12 days that it took him to A Plate for London. him and Bejay were working on creating a like a kind of private membership club, very similar to Shoreditch House or Soho House. And due to the breakout of the crisis, he had to pivot everything. He lost roughly about £500,000 in investment, or it was put on hold. And all of that happened, and he still had a positive attitude. And it was actually that inspired me to talk to the team about putting on Confronting COVID-19, because I saw a clear example of someone who had taken, what had kind of gone on around him and used it for his advantage and thought about, okay, how can I confront this virus and not let it confront me? And that was how Confronting COVID-19 kind of came about. So we decided to partner with A Plate for London and see if we can help them feed children in vulnerable communities across East London. At the moment, they've got the cost of food down, or the cost of a meal down, to I think £2.50. So for every £2.50 you donate, it goes towards it provides a nutritionless meal for a young child. They're also going to be doing grocery pack soon at 95p, I believe it is. So for every 95p you donate, or every £1 you donate, you'll be able to provide groceries for someone in a vulnerable community. The links in the chat if you want to donate. We're asking that everyone donate £2.50 or whatever you can, just to make sure that everyone can feed a child. And yeah, that's literally it. Thank you all for coming. Details about the next event will be coming out soon. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Bej. Thank you, Kike. Thank you, Will. And yeah, thank you, audience. And have an amazing day. And let's keep confronting COVID-19. Peace.
Yes. Bye, everyone. Stay
Bye,
safe.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Why are you looking like that? Oh gosh.